Hello, so here we are again. I've had the engine running and it starts on its own, and I did take it just outside the house for a little run, but the clutch bearing is absolutely knackered. I'll show you. I can fire her up. Also got a leaky carb, so I'll have to bed in the float valve. Right. So you could hear that when I pulled the clutch in. It was an awful noise. Now, I'm guessing that's the release bearing for the clutch. And I thought, well, I could do a video just showing how to look at the clutch, because you don't have to take the engine out of the frame. And some people don't like touching engines, but this is quite an easy job. Although most jobs are easy on a Quickly. But I thought I'd do a video and see how it comes out. If it's any good, I'll post it. So without further ado, I think we should start on it. So it's a job where you can check if you've got a slipping clutch or something, see if the clutch plates are worn, or if you've got what we got on here, which I don't think it's a crank bearing. I think it's a release bearing, because as soon as you pull that in, it's making an awful noise. So we'll see what's happening. The first thing to do would be, if I can get this undone, typically I can't, is to drain the oil out of the gearbox. And there is oil in there, so I checked it before we started running it. I'm just going to grab the outside of the nut to save buggering it up with the screwdriver. I've given it a clean hand as well. There you go, that's loosened it off. Right. Let that drain. So I think these are good changes. Okay. And meanwhile, we can take the pedal off. There's a special tool for this. I've never owned one, because it's the old sort of nut. It's not a hex nut, but this usually does the job. So if I can get on it, with the vice grips. Oh, it's not that tight anyway. Undo that. It's weird, that oil stinks. It must be old oil that smells. It's a certain smell to it. It reminds me when I first worked on a machine, which was a Quickly, with my dad back in the mid-70s, because it just smells like NSU. There we go. Come on, you little bugger. Right. Drop it in this way. There's a spring washer there. And then that. So that's right, that's factory. Little dish to put these in. The next thing will be to undo the cotter pin. This one's an 11. You can tell it's old stuff because, or original stuff. Usually that'll be a 10mm socket, but on these it's an 11. So I'm going to do that. Washer on there somewhere. One washer. And we'll bring that round. Get a little punch on that. And knock that out. Some people say leave the nut on so you don't damage the thread, but as long as we've got, well, you could leave the nut on, but I'm not going to. I think we'll be alright. What I am going to do is just bring that round a little bit. There. And hopefully one sharp whack, that'll come out. Come on, right you go. That's our pedal crank out of the way. Now, there's a brake lever here, because on these, if you back pedal, the brake, that's how you get the brake on. There's a circlip that holds this lever on. So we get that out of the way. Like that. Wiggle that off. Just like that, he says. Do that there. There's a little burr on the spline, I think. Isn't it typical when you're on camera? I thought I got all the tools I would need. And a little pry bar. There we go. Right, just hold that out of the way. Right. There's a chain link to undo, which happens to be nice and handy where we can see it. Get the chain out of the way. Clutch, we should better push that in and do it. If you can't do that, you have to release the tension on the up near the handlebars, but that's it. And we may as well now, I think, take this out. Little clip there. here. These little circlips. See if we get the lever out of the way. And another thing I didn't mention was there's a post on here where the side cover screws to, and that has sheared off. It's still in the cover. Now what I'm hoping to do, if there's enough meat in here, is to drill that through and tap it out, M6 whatever it is, and put a little stud in there. I have to grind these down flat and make up the distance with a washer. Put a little stud with some lock tight, and then I think we'll be alright. It's another little job. Now, this Mickey Mouse stand has got to come off, or if it was the latest stand, there's 2 bolts in there. But this Mickey Mouse stand, there's a circlip. No, there isn't. There's a cotter pin or a split pin around this end. Oh no, it's not. This one's a nail. How about that? This one's a nail. It's a very rare piece. I won't be putting that back in. No. This will be a cone. A little cone. That's the end of the split pin. This end it's just this shaft. Actually, there's another cone. I guess it's 3 cones and 1 shaft. I can just leave that out of the way. Of course, I'm going to drop one of the cones in the oil. Now what I should have done, that's a washer actually. I don't know if it's supposed to be a cane or not. I forget. I should have undone this nut when the chain was still on there. Hopefully it's not going to be too tight. Let's get a bit of wood. Get a bit of wood in here. Oh, that's alright. Should have been tighter than that. So you have to have these really tight to shear the little, you can easily shear the woodruff key. 1 nut, 1 spring washer. The next thing to do is to get this off. There is an NSU tool, which is a nice tool. I just haven't got one. There's some threads on the outside that screws on and just pulls in the middle where that little dimple is. But I have to use this because I haven't got the luxury of a nice NSU tool. So it's a two-legged puller. Get it in the middle where that dimple is, if I can. That's it. Get a bit of tension on there. There we go. There'll be a keyway in there. Wow, it almost looks like that's sheared off. Surprise, we'll able to ride it earlier. I think it's in there. I'm trying to turn this around. I shared that key. Here's a new one. Let me get that out. Get a bucket through there as well. There it is. Well, I shan't worry about that shielding too anyway. Okay. The next thing is simply to undo the bolts, I think. That should stay in there. So yeah, start undoing these bolts. That should be 10mm. On the very early ones, they were nuts on studs. What I have got somewhere, if I can find it. This is a bit of paper here. Just so you can put all the bolts, some of them aren't all, they're not all the same length, that's what I'm trying to say. So I'll just pop them in here. Nearly there. One more to go. Another job I've got to do on this frame, on this bike, is it's a crack in the frame on the other side. Apparently, it wasn't unusual for some to break on the early ones, and also they're smaller bolts. In the late ones. When I put the standard on, I have to drill that out 8mm, and I should do the same with this one. Put a big bolt in. But the crack in the frame can be welded. Now I'm thinking that should be able to come off now. Always remember to take the key out. I should bugger up the seal, although obviously we'll be changing this one. But so I'm going to get a lever bar. And a little mallet. Up there. Put that in there. close that. See how we go. Just leave this. Tap the bottom. Oh. There's two top hats which acts as dowels, one there and one there. Once you've got them out, once you're past them, it comes off quite easy, or should do anyway. This part will stay in the case, I think. Come on. Just tapping gently on the stand location. As you can see, as long as you don't cut that clutch cable, he says, which we had nicely out of the way. Let's have a look. There you go. And there we see all the gearbox bits. And this is what I'm going to be looking at. I think the bearing in there is knackered. May not be. Maybe when you're putting load on it, it's the crank bearing making that noise, but I don't think so. And that's really old oil. That stinks. Okay. So the clutch lever pulls this cone, which is connected through a circlip onto the bearing, which then releases the spring. I'm about to show you that. You have to remove this awkward little circlip. Sometimes they come off easily, sometimes they don't. Don't get in the way of the camera too much. I'm trying to do it without blocking the camera off. There we go. So you get this odd shaped circlet. And then you can pull this cone off, which again can be a pain. This one looks like it's quite tight, so it's a case of getting some levers on it. Put one there. It's a bit easier when the engine's on the bench. Put that there and gently lever that, maybe that. She's a tight one. It's only got to have a little burr on there. It catches on the bearing. No. I've even put a slide hammer on these before, slid them off, but it should be alright. I may have to switch the camera off, because it'll get boring. Just trying to, I don't know if I can get get that like that. Just wants a little bit of load on it, but not where the bearing is, just the edge. And try and get in here. No, she's not having it. She's not having it. Not moving at all. Okay. Oh, I think we got it now. Yes, he started. Just started moving. Just started moving, folks. Just got on the edge of that. You want an equal bit of pressure on each side. There we go. It's coming off slowly. Get that off. There we go. So the little clip was in there, and it was pushing on this bearing here, the one which I think is noisy. Although it doesn't feel it. It feels really nice. It might just be those crank bearings. But in any case, we'll carry on with this because this would be what you do if you're checking the clutch, see whether it's worn or not. The next thing is to undo this. And I should have an appropriate socket. What's that? That's 13. Must be a 12. Didn't surprise me. There are some odd sizes on these Quicklies. Okay. So we're going to undo that now. It's got a bit of history behind it, I think. There we go. Burred up. Now, what I do with this, I hold the crankshafts on the opposite side because they're not that tight. If it was really tight, I wouldn't suggest doing that because you can twist the crankshaft. I know you can do it on Vespers. There's a special tool that holds the clutch. But this, I've always done this on these, and it doesn't put the crankshaft out. If it was too tight, I'd stop. So I'm going to undo the cover for the mag. Use my magneto holding tool. Try and get around here. There we are. And it isn't that tight, you see. There's also a tool for compressing the spring, but I've never needed it. Even when you put them back together, you don't need it. You just push down and you can get it to start. So that should be a nut, two spring washers on these. There's only one. Oh no, there's two. Two of those spring washers. And that's the bearing. Which I think is fine. So I'm thinking what's happening is when we're putting load on to release the bearing, to release the clutch, it's putting load on that knackered crankshaft bearing. That's my guess. Why it was making that awful noise. So we now can take off this gear. clean all this stuff. The gear in here. And there should be a washer on there. There it is. It's a little shim. Put all these bits in here, including the nut. I'll get the nut out of the socket. So, this is the basket for the clutch. That comes off. And on these little 2 speeds, it's just a two plate clutch. On the 3 speeds, it's a 3 plate clutch. So this is 2 drive plates. This is all very wibbly wobbly. Not usually that wobbly. In fact, they can be a pain to get off, but there's a circlip here, holds the other half of the clutch on to the crankshaft through some splines. Come on. Pretty marvellous. You're on camera. Yeah, can't get the circlip off. Come on. Not playing ball. Right, get in there. See if we can get something behind that circlip. There it is. Little circlip there. And this comes off, and it's usually, there's some special tools, NSU tools for levering it off, but I found the tyre levers work. So we get the tyre lever there, the tyre lever there. That's a bit worried about that. I think the splines might be a bit worn, so it shouldn't really come off that easy. But there we go. That's it. So you would inspect all these parts if you've got a slippy clutch. Inspect that bearing. That's how much play here. There's loads of play in there. Loads of play. So that's what the problem is. I wonder whether it's just the knackered bearing or the crankcase might be a bit worn. With the bearing going up and down it, I won't know that until I strip it. So that's about it. So the clutch is that part, and then you put a drive plate on, then a washer in between. I don't know what you call these, but then another drive plate, lining these tabs up, and then that goes in like that, and that'll be the clutch basket or the clutch assembly, and that's being held on tight by the spring which we took off. When you release the spring, this slips. That's how the clutch works. So that's it. I got that wrong, didn't I? No, I did get it right. Yeah, that's right, yeah. And when you're rebuilding an engine, you must always remember there's an O-ring goes on top of the crankshaft here, and it sits in this groove. Because if you don't put that in, you'll be sucking air in. And that's a crank seal there. Well, it seals on here and that O-ring. So I think that's about it for now. Don't know if that was useful or not, but hopefully it was. This is interesting. Very interesting. Bye for now.